everyone, this is Niki Rowland and today I have a layout for Hip Kit Club. I'm using the July kits. They are super beautiful. This is the second layout I've made with them and I just love it. I'm using this subscriber cut file because it's Cut File Tuesday today, it's the mandala from June downloads. I thought that it would look really nice if I cut the cut file in white. I've cut it 3 times and I thought I could layer them over a mixed media background. So here I am attempting some mixed media. Now, I've done quite a lot of mixed media layouts in my time and they're not generally too bad. They normally look all right. But for some reason this one just didn't go that well. I mean, I'm looking at it now and it looks fine. I think I don't know why I didn't like it very much. But once I've got everything in place, I then completely have to change it because it just looks so awful. At the moment it looks absolutely fine. I think the big blue drip down the bottom definitely was upsetting the balance of the layout later on. But at the moment then, that looks like quite a nice background to start off with. Not entirely sure why it just didn't work, but you'll see later that I entirely changed this layout from how it started. But sometimes that's the process we have to go through, and things don't work out in practice as they did initially in my head. You know, these things happen, so no big deal. On the last layout I made for Hip Kit Club, I added some paint to a cut file, then added Versamark ink over the top, and then added a sparkle embossing powder over the top of that, and it was amazing. What an amazing finish. So instead of painting this cut file and doing exactly the same technique as I did before, I thought I would stick to white and still add the embossing powder over the top, and that just gives me a nice glittery cut file, all 3 of them actually, because I'm doing this for all 3 of them. It is really beautiful. I mean, to be honest, you won't be able to see it too well even in the photos, or certainly probably not on this video, but the finish, if you see it in real life, it's really sparkly and really pretty, and just add something a bit extra to the cut file. So I'm really happy that I've found this technique. I'll probably do it a few times, then forget about it for another 3 or 4 years, yeah, but super duper pretty and a really great way of making cut files really stand out and look beautiful. Just a bit different to normal, really, just being a flat white. Yeah, I really love it. I love how sparkly they are. Okay, so turning my attention now back to my mixed media background that I'm pretty much hating. I'm persevering and I'm trying to make it work, and I think, you know, it looks all right. It doesn't look horrendous. And I'm going to then put the cut files over the top and layer it around. And I think this is kind of where I went wrong, is that probably my cut files are too big because I have 3 of them. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to create this this like base for my photo of these cut files, but then I've got this mixed media piece as well. It was a slightly odd shape. I've just added some stamping, by the way, not that you can see it once I put the cut files back over the top, so I really don't know why I bother sometimes. But you know, we try these things. You might see a tiny bit. So I'm just having a think about how to arrange my cut files. I'm not happy with how this is looking over the mixed media. It should have, you know, worked really well, but for some reason it doesn't. Maybe if I had layered them completely over the middle of the mixed media, instead of what I'm trying to do was kind of go off to the side a bit so that you could see the mixed media over on the left hand side. But for some reason it's just not really working. So this is where I get to at this point. It's kind of looking okay. I'm thinking about putting another photo in and some other bits and pieces. And then somehow I end up moving, I think, it all over to the right a bit further so I can see more of the mixed media. But then, because I don't really like the big blue area at the bottom, it didn't really work that well. Anyway, you can see that I'm still persevering at this point, and I'm building my cluster. So I have my my cut files, I have my photo, I have the lovely chipboard frames. I love those. There's hexagons on one side and circles on the other side, and just building up and building up and adding flowers. I've also taken the other parts of that cut file and laid them onto the background of the layout. See, lately I haven't really enjoyed using white backgrounds for my layouts. Sometimes I can do it, and sometimes I prefer a bit of pattern paper. So on this occasion I thought I would stick with white, and then I thought that I could make the background a bit more interesting by adding these large sections of the cut file that I wasn't going to use. That was the way the cut file worked. In theory, you probably should have cut backing for it and stuck all the the 2 pieces together, and then there was the bit in the middle that would have been removed. But I didn't do that. I wanted to use them as they were, which meant that I had these extra bits that I was just going to discard. So I thought, if I stick them over the background, that might give me a really interesting look, and that might make my layout a bit better. Anyway, at this point I'm thinking, that bit on the background was supposed to make it better, and actually I'm thinking it's making it look worse. So I'm just still adding some bits to my cluster. I like my cluster with my photo and all my bits and pieces. I think that looks really nice, but for some reason the mixed media is just not doing it for me. Poking out on the left, I think maybe it would be better if I extended it a little bit, or covered it up more. But for some reason this layout just didn't come together particularly well at all. So as I say, I'm getting to this point, and I'm going to get all my cluster stuck down and stuck in place, and then I'm going to trim off those pieces around the edge of the cut file to see if I'm happy with how it's looking. And obviously I know how this turns out. I was not happy with how it looked, so in the end I actually changed things completely. But sometimes it's good to watch the process and watch things where they go wrong. I mean, this is a good idea to stick these onto the background. I thought that would make a very, very interesting background, much more interesting than just a piece of white card. We'll just give it some texture. I've done this technique before where you stick multiple cut files onto a background and it looks great. But I think for this one, the pieces were probably just a bit too big, and it didn't give me the pattern on the background that I was aiming for. It just looked, they just read as individual shapes rather than an overall pattern, like a subtle pattern. So anyway, I'm still persevering, giving it a go, even though I'm not liking what I'm making. It's not really coming together that well, but I'm going to persevere and see if, once I've cut these bits off, if I am happy or not. Actually, the answer is not. And I changed things completely. Hopefully you'll see me do that in just a moment. However, what I do keep the same is the cluster. So the cluster itself in the middle is fine. I love the arrangement of the 3 cut files. I've got the acetate mandalas, and there I've got several wood veneer pieces. I've got some puffy stickers. I've got some flowers, from the Build a Blooms kit. Here we go. So I decided that I didn't like the layout. So what I've decided to do was pull off my cluster from the layout and start again, but with it, because the cluster was lovely. I loved all the things that I had in there, but it just wasn't looking right on the background. So I pulled out this paper from the kit, which I absolutely love and was drawn to and should have used in the first place, to be fair. I don't know why I didn't. So I've trimmed out the middle, and I have just cut down a piece of white card to about 11.5 inches square. I'm going to stick that on the background so that the middle of the paper is white. So that just gives me a little bit of white space on a pattern paper background. I find that does really help, even if it's a small amount of white space, it does really help give some separation between the photo and the patterns. So yeah, I'm going to stick that onto that white, distress the edges. I've already moved over my wood veneer pieces, the 3 little strips that say "Feel the sun on our face," "Life can't get any better," and "Sunshine." I've already moved those over to that peachy coloured paper, just because I was laying it all on with my cluster to make sure that I was happy with how things were looking, and they stuck fast. So I'm just leaving them there. So anyway, I've taken the middle out of that paper, distressed the edges, stuck some foam pads around the middle aperture to give me some height there, and I'm going to then stick this to the white cardstock background. There we go. That will do 2 things. That will give me this bit of dimension around the middle of the layout. It will also make my layout much more sturdy by having that piece of white on the back as well. I prop my layouts up on display, and if they are flimsy layouts, just a sheet of paper, then they tend to bend and curl, whereas if they are a bit more sturdy with some white on the background, then that keeps them nice and straight. Okay, so there is my layout. I've added some white paint to that peach coloured paper, just with my paint shaky thing, Liquitex paint shaker. I've also added, I should say, is that I stitched around the edge of the circle 3 times actually. So on the peach piece of paper, I've stitched all the way around the edge of that circle 3 times in white stitching, and then the black and white circle that was the bit from the offcut from the middle, I've stitched around that 3 times as well, and then I have just basically stuck the entire cluster back down onto this piece of paper, and I tell you what a difference it makes. I am so much happier with how this layout looks versus what it did look like. Just added in a few splatters of black paint, or black ink actually. It's black Indian ink, which is very, it can bleed into the paper, so I'm just blotting off the excess. And that is this layout finished. And I can't tell you what a difference it makes. I'm so much happier with it on this background than I was on the mixed media one that I made. So I'm just having a bit of a mixed media nightmare at the moment. I have to watch some Missy Whiddin process videos, I think. Get me back into it. Right, okay, that is my layout complete. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget that if you are a Hip Kit Club subscriber, you get the main kit at a reduced price, 15% discount off all add-on kits, and you get access to exclusive subscriber cut files like the one that I used today. So thank you for bearing with me throughout this process, and I hope you're inspired that if something goes wrong, you can usually save a layout, and that's what I did today. Thank you so much for joining me. That was Niki Rowland for Hip Kit Club.